Boston College desperately needed a win, and they started off sloppy, but Quinten Post put them on his big shoulders and pulled off a win. We'll get into all of that on today's show.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is Locked On BC. I'm your host, AJ Black. Boston College defeats Notre Dame 63-59, a big win after a couple tough losses for the Eagles. And, of course, to talk BC basketball after a home game, we got Beacon Street Ball. Beak, how's it going?
It's going. I'm in a much better mood than I would have been if that was a loss. So, yeah, I think it was an interesting game. I know we're going to get into it, but I don't really know off the top, what to make of it. I didn't think that they played well for really any stretch of that game, but they came away with the victory, and that's what matters. I tweeted out after, it's a survive and advance mode is sort of how I feel right now, where, sort of got to right the ship, and it may take a little while, but any win they can get between, now and the end of January, I'll take. So that's my initial take.
Yeah, you have to go back. Like BC started off playing really poorly, and defensively, again, it was like kind of the thing that we've been noticing where Notre Dame, especially Marcus Burton, was lighting them up all over the place. And I saw your tweet that you had it was getting pretty dark there.
Yeah.
Where you said, I think the quote was, "Looks like my February is going to open up quite a bit."
Yeah.
So what was going on at the beginning of that game? And did it look like at the beginning to me, like was Post 100% to start this, or did he just?
Yeah. So he is definitely not 100%. So he, food poisoning is, I guess, what, they sort of, I guess, think it was for him and a couple of the other guys who couldn't go on Saturday.
Please don't say it was Chipotle again.
Having no idea. It was not. I won't throw the institution under the bus, but so him, Mighty, Prince, all pretty under the weather. And I think Post, it really showed getting his legs underneath him for the beginning of the game. But I thought he actually did a pretty good job defensively. He was bad on offense, just didn't have the legs to sort of get the ball to the rim, if so to speak. But the guards are just really, really struggling right now with any type of high ball screen. And I thought Zackery did a pretty good job given how he's defended the past 5 or 6 games, but Claudell Harris, Prince Aligbe, Mason Madsen, it didn't, Donald Hand Jr. especially, didn't matter. They were just getting torched on these high ball screens. And like you mentioned, Marcus Burton was getting everything he wanted. I don't know what Marcus Burton is listed at, but he's noticeably smaller than even Jaeden Zackery. And yet he was getting right into the middle of the lane and then had some space because, I think they're trying to adjust a little bit. So Post and McLaughlin were both staying home, and yeah, he was getting everything he wanted, and BC just didn't have legs scoring the ball on offense. Post had a lot of shots that were short. Claudell Harris struggled to find a rhythm. I think that's just an off day for him. I don't think there was anything there that, Micah Shrewsbury or Notre Dame did differently. But yeah, it was a dark first half. And unfortunately, it's the way they've played in the first half for probably the majority of games this year. They had a really good first half against Vanderbilt. I thought they played pretty well in the first half against St. John's and then a couple of the other cupcakes. But it's a trend that's definitely concerning, and a trend that, Notre Dame's the bottom of the ACC. So they were able to figure it out and get the win, but it won't work long-term in the ACC. So, I think you leave this game with more questions than answers. And if you're a BC fan and you're happy, I'm with you. I'm glad they got the win, but yeah, it's puzzling right now the way this team is coming out to start games.
Yeah, and you mentioned Claudell Harris. Let's talk about him for a while because I don't like to pile on a guy when he has an off game, but that was an off game for Harris.
Yeah, I think
falling.
Yeah, no, nothing was falling. I think he finished 1 for 13. My issue is less with him because I didn't think he took any bad shots, right? I thought most of his shots were shots that we've seen him take very consistently, pretty much all season. And I thought he did a really good job, I think, understanding that he didn't have it. And so he only took 3 three 3-point shots, that's good awareness from a guy, in my opinion. What I didn't love was that, the coaching staff, I think it was Earl calling, especially in the second half, he's calling a lot of the sets himself. But I think they went to him too many times. Zackery played really well. Madsen was feeling it. I thought he was doing a lot of good things in rhythm. And yet they just kept going back to Harris, back to Harris, back to Harris. And I don't fault any guy. Listen, if they call your number, it's sort of his responsibility, in my opinion, to do with that what you will. And so I had more of an issue with them continuing to go back to Harris. I think it falls into the trend of, Coach Grant and Coach Grant's staff of maybe not having the best feel for, rotations and who to sort of ride in terms of a hot hand. But again, it didn't end up mattering. I thought he did a pretty good job staying engaged defensively, given the shooting performance. But yeah, it's one of those games where, that will probably go down as his worst game of the year. And, they got a win out of it, so you can't really complain too much.
And in the end of the first half, BC's, they were down as much as 12 in the first half. It felt a lot bigger than that at different times. But again, the second time in a week, Mason Madsen hits a big 3-pointer at the end of the half. This was a buzzer beater.
Yep.
And you tweeted about it. I agree. Like I had him on our show last year, and he seemed like such a genuine nice guy, and he got a lot of flack last year just for an off season. And we find out that he was sick and everything. But to see him start to really find his rhythm and find his role on this team has been really refreshing. And to see him have success like this has been kind of awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I really do. I'm a Mason guy. I really am, and I think what he does for Boston College. I've written about this, and I've talked about this to people within the program. I think as a heavily biased outstander, I think what he does is really good. I think the perspective he brings to college athletes is really good. But I also think he's shown for the last, really probably since the early part of December, really consistent play. If you look back here, I'm doing some fast math in my head, but he's averaging just under 10 points a game over the past month and a half. And so that's a big jump from what we had seen last year. But I think he's shown that he does a lot of things that win basketball games. I think he fights really hard on the rebounds. I think he's very engaged defensively, does a good job, talking. I know that's something that they have a big emphasis on, calling out screens and whatnot. But, you look at a game like Saturday where, BC was undermanned. He got his first start of the year, and I think he put up probably Jaeden Zackery was very good, but he was very good. And then tonight, he seems to make hoops when they need him the most. They might not be, hoops that are giving him the lead, but he does keep him in it. And I couldn't be happier for him. I really couldn't. And I am glad to see his minutes sort of creeping back up. I think he's sort of surpassed Donald Hand Jr. As the, replacement for the 2-guard or 3 slot. And I like to see that. So I'm glad he's getting rewarded. And I think good things just happen when he's on the floor.
All right, in a moment, we're going to go from the chaotic first half to a battle in the second half where BC and Notre Dame took turns taking the lead, and it was the big guy for BC, Quinten Post, who took the game over at the end. We'll get into all of that in just a moment. The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. It's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. You into the NFL playoffs? If you've been watching all weekend, saw some of those blowouts or the good game last night between the Lions and Rams. You may have wanted to get some action on that, or you're thinking about next week. You can get into FanDuel, find those odds. They probably have them up already. Get in on there. You can get same game parlays as well. Find the bets in the new Explore tab. It's so easy to use. And what I love most about FanDuel is you get paid instantly if you are going to withdraw your winnings. So take care of yourself and go over to FanDuel /Locked On and make your first bet a layup with FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black, and I'm joined by Beacon Street Ball to talk about this game on Monday, Martin Luther King game. Fans were there. You were there. How was the attendance at this game?
I thought it was good. I'll be interested to see it. I actually was just trying to find it quickly in the background here if it's out there. I don't. Oh yeah, here it is. 6,348. So that's, I think, about 65-70% full if my math is correct. I thought the energy was good. I thought the students did a good job coming out. I had heard that they had really high expectations for student attendance just because first day back for students. No classes today, stuff like that. But I thought the students did a good job. There was a surprising lack of Notre Dame fans in there. I think, Bray being gone definitely sort of has their interest level down. So I thought it was good. I think it's a good precursor for Saturday. They announced tonight that it's a sellout for that game. Does not surprise me at all. Carolina, one, they're really good, and two, they're really fun to watch. So I'll be excited to see what the split is on Saturday, but I thought the fans were good tonight. And I do think Earl said this. I saw a quote of it in the press game that the fans were really good tonight. And I agree. I think they did a good job making more noise than they usually do. My biggest issue is that so many of the kids just sit on their hands. I mean, it's dead quiet and there'll be 5,000 people in there. So I thought they did a good job tonight, and I do think it made a difference.
All right. So let's talk about the second half. Back and forth game. BC comes back. They take the lead. Notre Dame, they don't give up. Talk about like the ebbs and flows of that second half, because it seemed to go. I think there were like 9 lead changes at one point, but give me your lowdown on how the second half played out.
Yeah, I mean, I think they did a really good job, and this is something that we've seen a lot this year, where they'll close the final, let's say, 2 to 3 minutes of the first half with a good amount of energy, and they'll carry that over and quickly erase the deficit. So I thought they did a really good job of that. With 13 minutes to go, it was a 1-point game, and they had a couple leads here and there before that. And then I thought Earl did a good job keeping the lineup in there that sort of gave them a run, which was Hand, Madsen. I believe he had McLaughlin, Chaz Kelly, and Zackery, but I could be off on one of those. But I thought he did a good job riding that lineup, and that lineup's given him a lot of really good momentum. And what I like about that lineup, and I think, I'm going to guess the coaching staff feels the same way, is that those guys just have a lot of energy. And it's not so much that their legs are fresh, but they play very spirited, emotional basketball, which when you are trying to make a run, that's something that, helps out a lot or gives the guys who are starters a lift and that type of stuff. And so, yeah, they were able to get it all the way up to, looks like 5 or 6 here. And I thought for a moment there that it was going to be a 10 or 15 point lead. And then, like we've seen a couple other times, most recently the Syracuse game, the starters will come back in. And I know that they are, in theory, the most talented 5 that BC has. I don't particularly agree with that, especially not right now. But Earl will go back to the starters, and they just, it's not that they play poorly, but they just take a 2 to 4 possessions to sort of get back into the rhythm of being back in the game. And that's all it takes for opponents to bring it right back to, like you said, a back and forth game.
So down the stretch, though, Jaeden Zackery had probably top to bottom the best game of
probably the year, probably of his season. Yeah.
Yep. But it was Quinten Post down the end. He had an 8-0 run, and then he hit the big 3-pointer at the end to win it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think long term that's huge for Post, who I think had lost some confidence in his ability to score at all 3 levels in conference play. He's gotten off to a really slow start in conference play. I don't think he's necessarily played poorly. I just don't think he's scored at the rate that he believes and the coaches believe that he's capable of. So from a confidence perspective, obviously huge. And then tonight, he's the reason they won that game. The call that Earl had there to sort of isolate Post as though he was a guard on the basically the bench side if you were in the building, but it was beautiful. I mean, Earl pretty much ran Post as though he was a 2 guard and just sort of isolate him on the wing, and Zackery found him and Post knocked down the shot. And that's a big time shot from anybody, let alone a 7-footer who you have to, respect his ability to sort of up fake and put the ball on the deck. So I thought that was a really good set. I tweeted it out. I thought it was one of the better sets that BC has run all year. And it ended up being enough, and that's what matters. And that's how it should be, right? If Post is your best player, and I do believe that he is, even on off days, he's got to make plays that win games. And tonight he did, and it was all that mattered.
Yeah. And even down the stretch, right after he hit that 3-pointer, I mean, up to the end, Notre Dame was not out of that. And they had that that play at the end where they were out of it, I think, at this point. But it just seemed like they were still able to get some plays off. They had that missed 3-pointer was
Yep.
Booth that was wide open.
Yeah.
So this team, it's cardiac Eagles here.
I just to jump in there really quick, I thought the foul by Quinten Post when they were up 4 and then he fouled. I don't know who exactly. I think it was maybe I don't know who it was. Somebody right there. He fouled going to the rim. That they just didn't need that foul, and I think that unfortunately is just bad coaching. You got to tell the guys that they're okay and really emphasize that a 2 is okay. I think Post's thought was. I'm not going to say he didn't know the score, but I think his thought was, this is a guy coming downhill and I got to challenge really hard. And he did a really good job of that. But yeah, you don't need that foul. And then, what you're talking about there, the wide open 3 that, he missed in the corner could have very easily, changed everyone's tone tonight. But like I said, to open a win is a win. And the way that they've been playing for the last, or really just this year, like in 2024, I'll take any win they can get.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, especially when you're you've lost 2 in a row. You've been struggling. You've had guys out. You win any way you can, and you pick yourself up and you move on from that.
Yeah, no, and I think again, that's the whole way I currently feel is that survive in advance. I think right now you would have to be taking crazy pills to think that this is an NCAA team, but I still think, 1 seed in the NIT is probably in the cards. The schedule does soften up here in the second half of ACC play, and I'll take. Unfortunately, they got 2 more road games next week. I know nobody's happy about that internally, so maybe you can give Carolina a fight, you get some momentum, and you steal a couple next week on the road, and we're all feeling a little bit better heading into February.
All right. In our final segment, we're going to look ahead to the game against Carolina, talk about any other things going on in Beak's world of college basketball and anything else that we want to talk about. If you have things in the comments, please throw them up. We'd love to talk about that as well. So we'll be back in just a moment. I know we come to sports to escape from some of the crazy realities of real life, but can we talk just for a minute about preparing for real life? According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade. This is scary. I can't imagine a more helpless feeling than if my wife or one of my kids got sick with a supply chain issue keeping them from life-saving medication they needed. Thankfully, we'll be okay because of Jace Medical. The Jace case is a pack of 5 antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinusitis, skin infections, among others. The stuff could happen to any of us. Visit jacemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. Go to jacemedical.com and use offer code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. This is Locked On BC. I'm your host, AJ Black, and we're wrapping things up here with Beacon Street Ball. Just before we get into our final segment, it was a sluggish weekend for BC sports. We had a very, very good opening game against Providence. BC hockey smoked the Friars 7-1, but then fell on Saturday. Of course, we had BC losing to Clemson. BC women's, BC women's had a good game too. So we're now heading ahead to it's a nice week off for this team, especially with the 3 guys that are coming off of stomach illness. It's nice to get a couple days off of rest. UNC's coming in. What does BC have to do to win this game?
Yeah, I honestly don't know how I didn't realize this. I usually when I go in and look at the ACC schedule, I look at who teams have directly before and directly after BC, and I must have just missed because Carolina's got Louisville on, I think it's Wednesday night, but they're coming off a 36-point win over Syracuse, in which I watched the condensed highlights yesterday, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, it was some of the most succinct offense I've ever seen at the collegiate level. And you would have to assume that they will be humming going into Louisville and humming coming out of Louisville. So that being said, I don't think you could get any team, let alone a top 5 team in the country, at a worse time than BC will get them. However, BC should be extremely motivated. I think internally there's a feeling that at full strength they could have handled Clemson. I think there is a feeling internally still that the games that were played in Kansas City, so Colorado State and Loyola, were not a true representation of the talent of this team. And you get Carolina in a game that will not only be sold out, but also be very, I think, well watched because of the way Carolina's been playing. And I think BC views it as a big time opportunity, and they should. However, I don't see a way in which BC stops Carolina. And that's what's concerning. If BC may have a chance, and I could be dead wrong, but I don't see Carolina struggling to get to 80, and it wouldn't shock me if they get to 90. And that means BC's got to play the offensive game they played against St. John's, the offensive game they played against Vanderbilt. And it's been over a month since either of those games have happened. And you could make an argument they played pretty well in the second half of some of the cupcake games. And they played pretty well in the second half of Georgia Tech, but they haven't played a complete offensive game in, 5-6 weeks. And I just don't see enough offensive firepower to keep up. And it's no one stopped Carolina all year, so BC shouldn't feel too bad if they can't stop Carolina. But yeah, I envision a very fast paced, high scoring affair that could potentially get ugly.
All right. We have one question out there. So Deidre says, what if all our best players have their best games? We haven't had a game where we have all played well yet.
Yeah, I mean, that obviously is the dream. Deirdre, I consider a friend. So, she and I have talked about this, at length. And I feel the same way. There has not been a game in which, Claudel, Jaeden Zackery, and Quinten Post have all played up to their full potential. And I think Zackery's playing his best basketball of the year. Claudel has played very well for, a month and a half, save tonight. And Post, I think his little personal run there to end the game should be a good confidence boost. But I don't worry so much about the offense as I do about the defense. I really don't see the way Carolina runs the high ball screen with Baycott and the way in which they sort of zip it around to whether it be Cormac Ryan, RJ Davis, Elliot Cadeau, and it doesn't really matter who it is, right? They're just, the ball moves. It's honestly, if you're a basketball fanatic, it's when they're on, it's beautiful offense. And I've watched a fair amount of Carolina basketball this year. So yeah, I worry about the ability to stay in front of these guards, and I don't worry about Baycott, but I do worry about, the ability to stay in front of the guards and things not to get out of hand, before BC can, find its rhythm like they have so many times this year.
All right, Beak, this is great having you on again. And it felt good this being a win. I was watching this going, God, are we going to have to go on and talk about a loss?
Yeah. Listen, it would have been dangerous. I was I wrote this in my write-up, but it was for me, that game on Saturday, I woke up at like 4:30 a.m. to fly down to Clemson, and when I got word that Post was not going to be able to go, I seriously debated just heading out and turning it around. But they put up a good fight, and it feels good to get back in the win column. I'm very hopeful. I wrote this too on Eagle Insider there, but I'm hopeful they can somehow win 3 out of 4 here. So got one tonight, and I don't expect to beat Carolina, but I like our chances against Virginia Tech and then get Notre Dame again in about 12 days. So I'm hopeful, but we'll see how it plays out and, see what happens.
All right, Beak. So where can people find you and find your work?
Yeah, definitely. So Twitter, just at Beacon Street Ball, or at Beacon ST Ball, or search Beacon Street Ball. And then write-ups after the game over on Eagle Insider. We try to do Spaces, which is a live audio show on Twitter after road games. We're trying to keep doing that all year. So, yeah, appreciate everybody tuning in and reading and commenting. I love talking ball. So if you comment or tweet at me, I'll do my best to get back at you. But, yeah, good fan energy tonight, and I appreciate everybody for showing up.
All right. Thank you so much, Beak. This is AJ Black. Follow me on AJ Black 247 on Twitter and on Eagle Insider. We'll be back again later tomorrow with more BC football talk and talk about anything going on with BC sports. We'll have everything here. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On BC for free wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. We're the only daily Boston College podcast, and we would love to have you as part of our audience. Thank you so much. We'll see you all again soon. For Beak, this is AJ Black. Take care. From Locked On Boston College, your team every day.